I don't know how to take that. But I guess that's the point. Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of Indie Book Club here in the most glorious month of October. It's no secret that it's my favorite month. Normally I would be more set up with the fire and decorations and stuff, but as you can see, or maybe you can't, there you go. I am in the family way, as they say, so I'm actually filming this a little bit earlier than normal because by the time you're watching this, I will have my little pumpkin actually with me. So had to move the timeline up a little bit, but that doesn't matter. You can celebrate Halloween and October and spooky things all the time, all days of the year. And in that spirit, we are going to talk about our October book, and that is the paranormal satire Deadheads, Gloomwood Book #1 by Ross Young, or R. Young, depending on which cover you listen to, I suppose. See, my cover says R, but on Amazon he's listed as Ross Young, so whichever, same person. From the Amazon summary. Augustin Blunt is a washed-out cop with a bad attitude, a drinking problem, and a troubled past. Oh, he's also dead, but that's okay, so is everyone else. Other than that, things are just peachy. Someone has stolen the Grim Reaper's head, and Blunt has been told to find it. In a new city where the rules of living don't apply, Blunt's up to his neck in the brown stuff, and he's never been much of a swimmer. With the aid of a woman who keeps turning involuntarily invisible, a journalist who hasn't written an article since she died, and a bureaucrat who can't say no to anyone, Blunt's got to stop whoever is stealing the heads of the city's elite. As he begins his investigations, he finds that things aren't all as they seem. Who are the Gloomwood Youth Order? What do you call the murder of someone who's already dead? Why are people having their heads chopped off? And what is in the hot dogs? With time slipping away, he needs to learn what makes the city tick before there's no city left. So that's very salesy copy, obviously. So to kind of give you a translation of what happens in the book, the Grim Reaper is in charge of Gloomwood, which, also not said in the description, is the place you go after you die, but it's not really heaven or hell. It's just kind of this very dark, cloudy, dismal sort of place where you just kind of are forever and you can't leave it. There's only one way you can leave it, and that is, I believe it is if your brain is destroyed, so it's kind of zombie rules. You can like lose arms and limbs or get mangled or whatever, but you stay alive. At the beginning of the book, he loses his head. Someone chops it off. And his body stops working, but he's not dead. Like, they can bring him back if they can find his head. The cops are sort of blundering idiots that crush skulls but don't really solve mysteries. Not really a lot of mystery going on in Gloomwood. Nobody really cares. Like, if crime happens, they're just sort of like, whatever, it's Gloomwood. But this is a big crime and they need to solve it because it's really important. Lucky for them, someone has just recently died that is a private investigator, and that's the main character, Augustin Blunt. And he's the eyes and ears of the reader in the book, basically. He comes in, he doesn't know what's going on, he doesn't know what Gloomwood is, he doesn't know where he is, he doesn't know anything about how the place works or the politics, of which there are kind of a lot, actually. And he comes in as, you know, a babe in the woods, which is what we're doing. So that's a pretty ingenious way to bring the reader into this very strange world and put them in a situation where he needs to get really familiar with everything really quickly, and it doesn't feel like exposition, it just feels like he's learning. Kind of think of this as like Harry Potter, for example. He enters Hogwarts and everything is kind of thrown at him as it is thrown at the reader, and we all go through it together. So besides the fact that it's based in a world of the dead, it's pretty much a straightforward whodunit with a lot of goofy stuff thrown in. You have your mystery right at the beginning, you have the stakes of, you know, we need to solve this or the city is gonna go crazy when they find out. We have to keep it a secret also because if people find out, they're gonna panic that there's someone going around chopping off the Grim Reaper's head, and then a number of other elite citizens get their heads chopped off later. You have this newbie come in. He walks us through the process. Of course, because he's new, he's kind of fumbling and bumbling through the investigation. There are setbacks, there are fights, and it all culminates in the final reveal of who did it and why they did it. Deadheads is, like I said, Gloomwood Book 1. It's the first in a series that is currently just 2 books. And the second one just came out in November of 2020. The first one actually came out in 2012, which surprises me because this is a really fun book. It's a really engaging, interesting book and a really unique book in terms of the voice. So I'm a little surprised that it hasn't caught on, which brings me at last to why this book is worth reading. Number 1. Like Hitchhikers in Hell. Ross Young is from Britain, not from London, I don't think, but from the country of England. And that is extremely clear in his prose. If you have read Hitchhiker's Guide or anything by Douglas Adams, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It also reminds me of another book, The Damned Busters, and it's very similar to some of the themes in here. The thing about British humor is it's kind of got 2 sides. It's got the really dry side, and then it's also got this really, really silly side, which I equate to like shows like The Toast of London. It just has a bunch of really silly like puns and really weird situations.
Is that it? Just that one word?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes!
Let's just try without the script. Might just loosen you up a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it's, what is it, 1 word? You don't really need it, do you?
I probably don't need the scripts, it's just a word.
Yeah. Okay, let's do it again.
A lot of the names in this book, like for example, Toadie's sycophant is a name of a character, and he is a sycophant. He is extremely obsequious and groveling, and the name is very illustrative, and that's very kind of true in Toast of London and other types of British humor books that I've read. It's also very obvious in the similes and the metaphors he chooses. For example, there's one line, his voice had less emotion in it than a greeting card bought at a petrol station. That is such a weird way to describe it, but I also oddly know exactly what you mean. It's very specific. And just a little bit off, but very clear at the same time. It's sort of hard to describe this kind of aesthetic. You just kind of have to hear it to know what you're talking about. So I'm going to read a short segment that really made me literally LOL when I read it. It might be a little bit long, but I think you'll understand why I'm reading it. You'll hear it and you'll see what I mean. To give you some background, the cops, this is very near the end of the book, and the cops, led by a man named Sour Cat, again, those illustrative names that we use in British writing, they are about to break into the place where they think the bad guys are. So this is right near the climax of the book. On the other side of the door came the sound of footsteps drawing nearer. From behind the massive wooden paneling, rattling and clicking emanated until eventually a small, previously unnoticed wooden window slid open, revealing a pair of tired-looking eyes. "What do you want?" the figure behind the door asked in an unnaturally high voice. Sour Cat bent down so he was eye to eye with the person behind the door. "I'm Captain Sour Cat of the Gloomwood Police. Open the door." The eyes disappeared for a moment. When they returned, they looked annoyed. "Have you got a warrant?" "A what?" Sour Cat asked. "A, warrant." The eyes disappeared for a moment and returned again. "It's an official piece of paper that says you're legally allowed to enter the building. You need to have a good reason." Murmuring came from behind Sour Cat. The policemen surrounding him were all confused by this new ruse to try and stall them. "A warrant? That's new. Who gives out the warrants?" "Hang on, I'll find out." The eyes disappeared again, and Sour Cat could just about make out the sound of whispering, but the words were too quiet to catch. The eyes reappeared. "Warrants are normally given out by judges." "Right then, who's got some paper on them?" Sour Cat asked the men assembled behind him. "I have, Gov," answered the man who stood waiting to slap the unconscious man on the ground. "And a pen?" Sour Cat barked, his hand held in the air waiting. "Come on, lads, we're police officers, and we never go anywhere without a pen and paper, do we?" The assembled men shuffled their feet awkwardly, all refusing to look at each other or, more importantly, catch the eye of their captain. Sheepishly, Sour Cat turned to the eyes in the door. "Do you have a pen?" "Yes, certainly," the eyes said as a pen was slipped through the window in the door. "Thank you," Sour Cat said, his voice smothered in gratitude. He knelt on the floor and quickly scribbled a note on the paper with the bright pink pen he had been handed, which had a clown's head on the end of it. "Right, here's your warrant. Let us in," he shouted as he stood up, waving the piece of paper. The eyes narrowed. "I'll have to see the warrant. I don't see how you could have gotten it signed by a judge." "Judges decide who gets locked up, and only me and the Grim Reaper decide that. So I'm a judge. Now stop wasting time." I just love that scene. I think it's so funny to have all of these bumbling cops, like Keystone Cops kind of situation. And they're, they don't have a warrant. They don't even know what it is. The criminal element has to tell them what the warrant is and also give them a pen in order to create the warrant. Like, it's just so dry and silly at the same time. It's so fun. And the book is just full of moments like that. So I could probably break this down into another 2 or 3 elements, but really, this is the reason you want to read the book. Aside from the fact that it's a solid whodunit. The book itself is about 400 pages in Kindle format. I think it works out to like 350 or so in regular book format, I think. But it doesn't feel that way. It goes so fast, and it's just a completely enjoyable read and really, really great for this time of year, for the Halloween season. In keeping with the importance and prevalence in this book of the English aesthetic, the writer's takeaway for this month is the importance of voice. There's a writer's conference here in town in Vegas that happens every year, and one of the signature events that they do is first page reads. They do it over the lunch hour. People will submit just one page of their current work, one standard page. Someone will read it on stage, they'll read it out loud, and there will be a panel of agents up there that will raise their hand when they say that they would stop reading if the manuscript came across their desk. Almost every time when an agent raises their hand, the reason they give is, "I couldn't hear a voice," or "the voice wasn't unique," or "I didn't connect with the voice." So that really emphasizes to me and to most people how important it is to really have a unique voice. And I'm not talking about dialogue. I'm not talking about characters speaking. I'm talking about the author voice in narrative. And it's an incredibly tricky thing. So to give kind of a analogy here, in terms of like movies, you think about Quentin Tarantino. He has a very distinctive shooting style. He's got, he uses the title cards. He uses very static shots, very strong shots of people almost looking straight into the camera. So when you're talking about a book, it's that sort of thing. It's the story you're telling, but how are you framing it? Because, if anyone else besides Quentin Tarantino had taken on the story of Pulp Fiction, we would be dealing with a completely different movie. It would look totally different. It would feel completely different. And that is your voice. How are you bringing this story to the reader? How are you presenting this story in the narrative? It's the way you phrase it, it's the words you use, it's your cadence, it's your pacing, it's your attitude. It's also really important to have an authentic voice. We'll keep going with Tarantino as the example. So many people have tried to duplicate his style, and it always comes across as forced or fake. I've said many times in the case of this book that it reminds me heavily of Douglas Adams, and it does, but it's not copying Douglas Adams, it's not trying to be him, it's just very much like him, but it's also very much itself. And in that way, it continues to be successful. So it's important to have a clear voice, a distinct voice, and a unique and authentic voice. You can't fake voice. When I've been present at these first page reads, they catch that too. The agents say it doesn't feel natural, it feels really forced. I just can't connect with it. And that's the third thing I would say is you need to be relatable in your voice. And some genres do this easier than others. Comedy, kind of a double-edged sword. If it's funny and it works, then you're great. There's nothing better. And if the humor doesn't hit or it's not that particular agent or that particular reader's cup of tea, then it's really just, there's nothing you can do about it. And then you've got stuff like political thrillers, which are a little bit more just a very straightforward voice, a very utilitarian voice, very much just what's happening and describing the scene and letting the events kind of play themselves out. And that's, you know, the difference between something that's really heavily genre and more literary. Literary, the voice is everything. Genre, you get, you know, you're a lot more focused on the plot, so your voice doesn't matter as much, but you still need to be aware of it. It still needs to be there, and you still need to abide by sort of the expectation that your readers are going to have. You don't have to, but you'll probably connect with your readers a lot easier if you do. So that about wraps it up for me. Thank you all once again for watching this installment of Indie Book Club. If you haven't read Deadheads yet, go pick it up on Amazon. There's a buy link in the summary. If you've read the book and you want to comment on anything I've said here, please leave it below in the comments. Or if you have any questions about anything I've gone over in the writer's takeaway, anything about voice or anything along those lines, leave comments, let me know. I check this account. You know, it comes right to my email if someone leaves something for me. Coming in November, we are going to be talking about the dark fantasy, The Vial of Desire. I did mispronounce it on the book reveal way back in the end of 2020. I can't even remember what I said, but having read the book, I now know that it is pronounced desire and not whatever the hell it is I said earlier. Please like the video if you liked it and subscribe to the channel if you want to keep getting great book recommendations like this and great advice for writing like also this. Since it is the month of October, I'm also going to take this opportunity to plug my own book, which is Dead Mall Part 5, A Midwinter Nightmare. If you haven't read the Dead Mall series yet, go check me out on Amazon or at my website, sgtosh.com. It's pretty fun and also a really good book for the scary, haunted, creepy month that we are now embarking on as we lead up to the Halloween holiday. This does not seem like a good sign at all. My fate just gave up on me. That sucks. Anyway, happy Halloween, everybody.